Well, it's so great to see you all here. Thank you to everyone that came today. I know it's a busy time of year. I just had my last day of school yesterday and a lot of people have things going on. So I appreciate you all for coming here and making time to hear me. I am super excited today to be able to have a senior recital just for myself and to be able to perform some of my favorite pieces that I've learned the past near 11 years of piano learning. I started learning piano, I wrote it down here, in September of 2014 with Sister Jane Ann Messenger, who's here in the audience today. Thank you. And so it's been an incredible journey going from her in 2014 all the way to now in May of 2025, nearing 11 years. And at the end of this next coming month, I'm going to be ending piano lessons as I have a busy summer ahead of me, and then I'm starting my mission to Barcelona, Spain. And so I thought it would be incredible and much needed to have a little bit of a celebration of the past 11 years of everything that I've learned. And so I would like to start today looking back to the past a little bit, back to my days with Jane Ann here. And we're going to work our way chronologically through some of my highlight key pieces throughout the years. So to begin, I'm going to be playing a piece called The Great Smoky Mountains. This is from Alfred's premier level courses, and these books were essential for me as I was learning through her. They have 6 books, and this is the 4th one, the premier piano course. And this is the last song in it. And I chose this song in particular because this was one of the first pieces that I played where I realized that I actually like piano. And it wasn't just a song that I learned because I was like an obedient child and I listened to my mom to practice. But this song I genuinely enjoyed to play, and my younger self, probably 10 years or so old at the time, genuinely loved playing it and thought it was the coolest thing ever and really pretty. So I have a list of voice memos on my phone, audio recordings, and I've done them. I have a habit of recording myself playing the piano when I learn a new song that I really like. And I was scrolling through my old voice memos, and this was my first ever voice memo, this piece called The Great Smoky Mountains. And so I realized that I just had to play it today. And it's been an incredible journey since then. But here's this piece. And I'm sure it's not played exactly how I really played it back then, but you get the gist. Thank you. For those that just walked in, that was one of my first piano pieces that I ever learned, or more accurately, one of the first piano pieces that I played that I genuinely loved to play. That was from probably 2019. Next up, I'm going to be playing a piece called Prelude No. 1. This was written by George Gershwin, and this also takes me to my second piano teacher. I had Jane M. Messenger from September 2014 to June 2021, and she was incredible and taught me so many amazing basics and the foundation that was needed for everything that I'm at now in the piano, like what the notes are and reading music and everything that is just so normal and, well, obviously to me now. But there came a time where I was wanting to get just that next level, the super fine tune where I knew the notes, but now it was all the nitty gritty stuff. And so she recommended that I move up to a new teacher, get a new fresh eyes on my pieces. And so this was one of the first pieces that I learned with my new teacher. His name is Dane Montague. Unfortunately he's not here today. He's actually back east in dental school right now. And so I didn't have him for very long. But he was incredible and taught me a lot. I had him for just about a year before he left off to dental school. But anyway, this is a very fun, very lively piece called Prelude No. 1 by George Gershwin, and I hope you all enjoy. Thank you. Thank you. Isn't that one so fun? So that was Dane, and he was incredible. But like I said, he left off to dental school, and so I was on to a third piano teacher in this journey of mine. And her name was Diane Carter, and she was incredible. She was just out in the tree streets and taught me for around 2 years before leaving to SUU to do piano down there. But while I was with her, she taught me a lot. And one of the biggest things she taught me was being able to memorize my pieces. Up until then, when I would have a piano recital, I would just do it with my music. And that was my comfort zone. And with Dane, he would recommend that it was memorized, but it wasn't a requirement. And so it was a little bit of a shock when I first started taking with Diane, and she told me that any of the pieces that I learned had to be memorized when I performed it, and that seemed super scary. And so I'm grateful to her for teaching me to get past that new comfort zone of not only learning the notes and the dynamics and the rhythm and everything in between, but also having it 100% locked into my memory so that I wasn't reliant on the pages. So this next piece that I'm about to play is one that I did end up memorizing for her, and is still one of my all-time favorites. It's called Golliwogg's Cakewalk by Claude Debussy. He's the guy that also wrote Clair de Lune. And so he was a genius and has all kinds of amazing, crazy styles, and you'll hear it in this piece. When I learned this piece, I was actually living at my grandparents' house. We were renovating our house, and so it made practicing the piano extra tricky in that the house that I was living in my grandparents did not have a piano, which was not good because I needed to practice this a ton to get it memorized and figure it out. And so I ended up going to my Uncle John's house actually a lot. I have distinct memories of practicing this piece for hours just at his house in the basement area where the piano was. So he and Heidi may recognize this piece because of that. But I ended up spending about 9 months on this. It was definitely quite a bit above my skill level at the time, 3 years ago, but super cool. So I hope you all enjoy it. This is Golliwogg's Cakewalk. Thank you. That one's also really fun. Surprise, all of the pieces today are very fun because they're my favorites. So Diane Carter was incredible. She taught me, probably the biggest thing was just the confidence and memorized playing, giving me that next push into the advanced realm of piano playing. But like I said, she left off to SUU, and so I ended up with who my current teacher is now, Michael Orgill, who we also have here, and he's incredible. And so here we are in the journey, and that was definitely a little quickened version. There's a lot of things missing in it. But it's been an incredible journey with my 4 piano teachers now, and hundreds and hundreds of songs learned, and thousands of hours put into this instrument, and much love put into it, and hopefully much love felt in the people listening to me play it. So I wanted to play a piece that I'm currently working on now with Michael. It's not perfectly polished yet because I'm still in the works of it, but it's enough to play through it and get the idea. But this is a piece that I've been looking forward to playing probably my whole life, and it's a piece that since early on with Jane Ann I had always listened to. I had a little piano playlist and it was always on it, and it was always incredibly hard sounding too, and rightfully so because it is. And I'm still working on it, but I would love to play for you what I have. This piece is called Fantasy Impromptu by Frédéric Chopin. And what makes it so hard is that the entire thing is full of polyrhythms, which for those that don't know music super well, basically means that the notes aren't lining up together. And so I have 4 notes playing in the right hand for every 3 in the left hand. And so some notes in the right hand line up, and others with the math of it are just a half second before the left hand note. And so it creates a really weird succinction of the notes back and forth, and it's hard to make it sound smooth and get the rhythm down. And so I just remember countless hours in our early stages of it about 2 months ago, just bit by bit, very slow, very jaggedy, and it's smoothing now, and hopefully in a month will be very good. But here it is for what it is, and it's a beautiful piece. Fantasy Impromptu by Chopin. Thank you. Thank you. That piece is so incredible. And yeah, I love it. And it's always amazing to dream about something for so long and to work so hard that eventually that dream can become a reality. And I'm like 92% there, so it's awesome. It's almost complete. Well, after all, the reason why I'm ending piano lessons, other than just graduating and other things, is because I'm going on a mission, and because of my dedication to the church and to this gospel that I believe in. And so, and obviously we're in a church building here too, and so I thought it'd be a shame if I didn't play one of my favorite hymn arrangements as well. And sometimes words don't quite convey what you want them to. And so I love the spirit that music can bring, and I often feel that I'm more successful at that than giving an impromptu speech or a long talk about some gospel principle. So I hope you enjoy. This is a very beautiful arrangement of How Great Thou Art, and a little fun fact about it is it was written or arranged by a lady named Lenore Brown, who is actually the piano teacher, or was the piano teacher, of both Dane Montague and Diane Carter, who were my second and third teachers. And so it's a really cool lineage here of the teacher of my teacher, and two of my teachers, in fact. So I hope you enjoy it. It's a beautiful arrangement of How Great Thou Art. Turns out you get thirsty when you're playing in the suit. Next up, I'm going to be playing a beautiful movie arrangement that I love, and this is called When You Wish Upon a Star. And it's originally from Pinocchio, but if you've ever watched any Disney movie ever, it's the intro song to the castle and fireworks before said movie starts. So it's, for me, a piece full of nostalgia and childlike wonder and dreaming that I love. And this arrangement is also a beautiful jazz arrangement. It's super cool and has a little jazz improv section in the middle. And my brother got married last week, and I had the honor of playing this at his family dinner the day before his wedding. And the reason for that was because one of his first dates with his now wife was under the stars, stargazing and dreaming of everything that was to come and the big futures up ahead for them. And now as I graduate here and prepare myself for my mission to Spain and BYU and everything beyond, I dream and think about everything that I'm about to embark on too as I close these chapters of my high school life. So for that, I love this piece, and as a little cherry on top, it's also memorized. So enjoy. Thank you. It's a weird feeling to play memorized. You have to really focus, otherwise you get distracted and you lose it. Like for example, while I was playing there, if I think too hard about what notes I'm playing, I'll forget the entire thing. And so it's a weird balance of ignoring any voices or talking, but at the same time not thinking too much about the music, because if I start thinking, oh, is that CD, before my mind gets lost and the flow is interrupted. So when I'm playing memorized, it just goes into another space, and it's unreal, and you can only know it, I guess, if you have played memorized before. But next up is a wonderful piece that I love, and it was originally taught to me by Diane Carter, my previous teacher, and was then revived this year by my current one, Michael Orgill. And that was for this high school solo and ensemble competition that I did for the school. And it started at the school level, and then it went to a region level, and then a state level. And to move on, you had to receive a top ranking to get to the next, and it gets harder and harder judging with each level. So it goes on a scale from 5 being the worst thing ever, you probably sight read it the day of, to a 1 being about as perfect as you could reasonably get. And so I got a 1 on the school level, I got a 1 on the region level, and just 2 weeks ago I got a 1 on the state level for this piece. Thank you. So this is a piece that I've devoted a lot of time to. It probably took about 9 months with just Diane normally, and then more memorizing it and just new polishes with just being a little bit more advanced 1 year later with Michael these past few months. So I love this piece, and this is called Serenade by Schubert and Liszt. Thank you. takes a lot of focus, and it's so beautiful too. Next up is a lot more fun one, very big mood shift. This one is called Heart and Soul, and it's funny because I technically learned this one of my first piano lessons with Jane Ann, but it was just a little bit more simplified. It sounded something like this. Like that. And I came across a really cool YouTube arrangement I recommended one day about a year ago for that piece, but in a full-fledged advanced piano jazz arrangement. And I saw it and I instantly bought it and started learning it because that was way too cool to pass up. And so this piece is a lot of fun. I actually played it for a talent show at Timpview last year in front of the whole school, where I pretended to not know the piano, and I had a piece of paper on here like this, and I started playing the old version of Heart and Soul, making up all kinds of mistakes and slipping up, and it was this whole skit, and then they took away the music and they were like, "You gotta play with your heart and soul." It was cooler in person. and then I played this memorized, and everyone was blown away. So it was a fun time. I'm not going to go through the whole skit routine of you all, but I have a good history with this piece, and it's always funny to listen to when you compare it to like the toddlers playing on the piano. So enjoy this fun little jazz arrangement of Heart and Soul. Thank you all for being here today. It's been a true pleasure to be able to perform for all of you some of these just little piece of all my many favorite pieces and songs I've learned. For being honest, I really couldn't pick any true favorite because I love all of these. And if you brought up names of other songs I've learned in the past, I would want to add it onto the list too, but trying to keep it somewhat under an hour, within an hour. So this is my last piece for today, and it is called Grande Valse, Brillante by Frédéric Chopin, and it's incredible. I spent around maybe 10 months to perfect this one, and this was another one of the pieces where I started it with Diane Carter, and it was during my transition period, and so I finished it with Michael here. And so it was cool to see the perspective of two different master teachers and help craft it. And it's also, it's just a beautiful piece, super lively, super fun, and I thought it'd be a beautiful, perfect ending. It has everything, it feels like, all bunched up inside of it. So it's not quite as polished as it used to be, more revived, 90%, but you'll get the gist. But thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it to see all of you here, wanting to come celebrate me in this wonderful 11 years of piano learning. And I know I'm going to be using the piano for the rest of my life. And although I won't be formally taking lessons, I'm definitely not giving it up. And I'm forever grateful for all my amazing teachers and amazing parents to pay for lessons and to encourage me to practice until I learned to love it myself to want to do so. My life's been totally changed because of this instrument, and because of the piano I also know how to play the organ now for Sundays, and it's helped me in choir to jump up in just 3 years from like the beginning choir to the highest one at Timpview, and ultimately brought my life a lot of joy and a lot of other people joy too. So thank you all, and without further ado, please enjoy Chopin's Grande Valse, Brillante. time. I appreciate it. Hope you all enjoyed. And we have some ice cream bars to enjoy as well here. Out there.
That's the only reason we came.
Yeah, obviously. Well, can't be a good meeting without a little tree after. So, thank you all for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Eliza.